Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to WCS Winter Americas. We're moving into our second series for the Americas group. My name is Fear Dragon. I am joined here by Zombie Grub, and we're doing yet another Zerg versus Zerg.
Yes.
We're the volunteer Zerg versus Zerg squad.
Yeah, we don't have a rotation that we stick to no matter what.
Absolutely not. And you guys would have to get Jeff in Control Robinson to crunch those numbers, figure out that rotation that may or may not be going on. But this should be a fun one. It's going to be the German Zerg player TLO facing off versus Silky. I think that Silky had a bit of an interesting start last year. He was I really felt like he was on a huge upswing in skill. He was getting so much better. And then I think he started to kind of stagnate a little bit. Like the growth sort of started petering off. Not to say that he was getting worse or anything, but he just stopped growing as fast.
Okay.
And then he kind of leveled out over there. I think maybe just to do with school and all that stuff. You know, the NA life. But TLO's also in kind of interesting stories. I know you also know he's moved over to the North Americas region. It's in Canada.
Yeah, that is a complication for a lot of our NA players, like specifically in North America. But TLO has been a pro at StarCraft 2 for a very long time, originally in Germany, so full-time. And while he has gone to Canada and, you know, has that social life and all that.
He's a kid and everything.
I mean, kind of, yeah. But the point is, he still is dedicating 100% of his time to this, which might make things a little complicated for some of our part-timers. Well, kind of part-timers like Silky who have school, you know, jobs and all that. We'll see how it goes. ZvZ in the bottom right as the red Zerg. It is TLO. Team Liquid.
Our first line of defense against Alpha Star. But starting up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Zerg player. He is none other than Silky. Psystorm Gaming. Young guy, I think just recently getting close to graduation.
So yeah, they had a lot of young players. TLO's probably the oldest person in this group, right? He's 28.
I think, yeah, Coffee was 26, 24.
It's still like...
something like that.
I was going to say 26 is still kind of old, actually, as far as making
I actually forget. I looked up and I saw how old Coffee was, but I'm blanking on the number now.
Well,
but yeah, Seether's still very young, so.
Yeah. Well, really, it's like, I guess we're kind of lucky being our ages, but it's like, you know, 10 years ago, there is still a big, like, I mean, I want to say it's basically a lie, but there was a big idea, right, that was very perpetrated that if you were 20, then you're already like a little too old to start. Like, don't bother being a pro gamer if you're already 20 years old.
I think still one of my favorite threads on Team Liquid that was ever made was on the broadcasting side. Someone saw Pig making a joke during a stream and saying, does Blizzard get rid of casters after they hit a certain age? Are you not allowed to be a commentator after you hit like 30 or something?
Sweet child.
Because Pig said he made a joke that he was getting old and that he would have to retire soon. And I'm just like, do you know how old Artosis and Tasos are?
They're the only exception, obviously.
Red Eye, DJ Wheat.
No.
No? Doesn't ring a bell?
No more hires.
No more hires. Well, guys, thankfully, Zombie Grub and I are at the ripe age of 22. So we got still a lot of life left in us.
Yes, exactly. At least 8 more years. Thank God.
At which point we will become 24. But this Zerg versus Zerg is underway. We got natural expansions down for both sides. We got not a whole lot of craziness. This Overlord did overextend itself a little bit there for Silky, though.
So the Overlord overextended? I gotcha. It did. It really did. That was not supposed to be there. I am 99% sure that was a mistake when you go into co-op and you're like, I'll send my Overlord to scout, and then just runs right into the unit, like literally right outside. And you're like,
oh no, they have more than workers here.
No, that's not 1v1 because that Overlord, once it sees the creep spread in the natural, it really isn't supposed to do very much more. This Overlord is actually repositioning itself, which is it should be scouting this path, but then the Overlord just died. It was supposed to be scouting kind of over here in this path. That is now missing from Silky.
Where is the Roach Warren for TLO? Because he's getting up his lair. He's sitting on 2 bases. Okay, there's the Roach Warren. He's getting a missile attack.
Yeah. Well, as I said in the last ZvZ, it really is, you can push off the Roach Warren,
Yeah.
but the +1 missile is, you got to get that started around the same time that your opponent does. But the Roach Warren, like if they start sooner, but they're not going to move across the map, probably without speed, and you can buy time, like that can be pushed off a little bit. Faster lair for, yeah, actually just a lair in general for Liquid TLO.
Yeah, it's just kind of interesting because both these players managed to skip speed. And while you're right, there is a faster lair there for TLO. TLO just sitting back on the 2 bases, and we have Silky who was able to establish the fast 3 bases and get up the like Roach Warren and keep up on pace with the +1 missile attack. So it is just Roach speed is going to be lacking. And kind of funny enough, as long as he's in position to deal with, say, a nydus worm, I don't know if Roach speed is going to be that beneficial for TLO, right? If you nydus worm in and you're in position, then the Roach speed doesn't come into play that much, does it?
Yeah, there's definitely easier micro you can do with Roach speed, so it's not like it's an upgrade, but you know, I think it's one of those things where if you had to choose between 2 extra Roaches or Roach speed and you're defending an all-in, you'd go for it, right. But Roach speed is going to be a part of the usual ZvZ groove. It is going to be something that, if the Nydus Swarm is actually so funnily like obvious, but Silky hasn't said anything to the front lines. The Roach Warren not wiggling might have been a tell, but there's no tells. Silky's not scouting.
I love that Silky was pushing back that Overlord with the Queen in the main base, but now he pulls back since he didn't get the Overlord, so TLO is going to get vision of the main base again. And this is exactly what I was thinking about. The second Nydus Swarm going up in the main base, and Silky is going to be very out of position, and now not having Roach speed will really slow down his reaction time to that.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. If TLO really is going to play this more of a macro, just use the Nydus Swarm as a tool to move around, then Silky not having Roach speed is going to be quite annoying. But he certainly has enough army to take care of this. TLO really bringing out the strats.
Yep.
Known for.
A little bit of whack-a-mole going on right now as it kills off the Nydus Swarm in the main base, but then all the Roaches just unloaded over to the 3rd base, and now potentially some Roaches are going to get picked off. A Queen or 2 might end up dying over here. TLO does not have another Nydus Worm to go back into, though, and he isn't starting one up, so he's hoping he can get some damage on. Has to be careful. He doesn't want to overcommit over here, but he does have a decent number of Roaches and is taking some pretty good fights.
Yeah, it's all right. You know, I was actually quite worried after the 2nd Nydus Worm, I guess it was. This is the first one. Went down so easily that this would not start netting him advantages, but it is starting to for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Armor supply is evened up, and Silky is now starting to struggle.
Roach speed finally finishing up here for Silky, so his reinforcements are going to get here, and he can finally micro back and forth effectively against TLO. The Spire finishing up here for TLO, though, does secure him a next step advantage, though. Being able to pick off all the Overlords, supply blocks, Silky, and just keeping Silky generally at home, preventing him from going for a big counterattack if things did start going wrong for TLO.
I mean, the idea of this, if this is the idea, just to continue on pressure and have it so that Silky makes a couple mistakes, but also most importantly, doesn't get any scouting because you're so worried about the Nydus Worm. It's going to work out really well. TLO is going to have the map domination with these mutas after the Nydus Worms gave him the initial presence on the map, and Silky still has no idea. But, you know, he dealt with the Nydus Worms fine. He might be okay against the mutas, but they are going to be a surprise. He will lose Overlords, and it might be tricky to grab that 4th base as time goes on.
Yeah, kind of funny, both these players supply blocked the exact same supply as well. But a few more Overlords finishing on up, and it is going to be Silky that will be losing a few more of those in the bottom left if those mutas decide to go to that angle. But Sport Crawlers should be finishing up right in the nick of time as these mutas make their way forward. The Ravagers are still going to be a bit of a vulnerable target. And actually, Sport Crawler, a few seconds late here, going to snag a couple of drones.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh,
Okay, the
bit over aggressive there with mutas.
Is he focus firing the weak muta? He is.
Yes.
Sit on Silky.
And that is going to be the muta flock push back. 2 mutas end up falling there. Actually, just running straight past some of those Overlords maybe. Looking for damage in the main base immediately.
I think that's their use, is killing Overlords.
Yeah. Oh, he wants to get up the vision in the main base. Okay, so that makes sense. He knows that the entire army was sitting over by the 3rd base.
Overlord was there.
Double scouting.
Whatever. The muta's gonna, I guess, get those Overlords later, because Silky's not pulling them back, and it's actually kind of unfortunate for him, because he had the chance. There was an open opportunity. TLO not stopping with the Nydus Worms. Really wants to make this work.
Yeah, there is a point. Of course, Nydus Worms are a lot cheaper than they used to be now, but there is a point where if you start throwing up too many Nydus Worms, they just keep getting shut down like this. 3 roaches with +2 missile attack. I think that they should be able to kill this in time. And the other nice room does get up, but it's just at the front door. It doesn't really net him a massive advantage outside of maybe faster reinforcements.
Yeah, I can see how the Mutas taking out the eyes from Silky as the game goes on means that these Nydus Worms are going to actually be very effective in moving that army around. But, you know, this one of the main getting shut down is really not being useful anymore. And I'm not sure that as long as Silky is okay on 3 base, I'm not sure that TLO is really going to find him as out of position as he was hoping for.
Or for the drop Overlord from that Overlord in the main base is curious.
Yeah,
I feel like that was supposed to be an Overseer, but he may have misclicked.
Yeah, it's possible. There are some Ravagers here for Silky, not so for TLO. But TLO, what is he doing behind this? All about the... He's really dictating the pace of the game with the Nydus Worm and the Spire. He's going to Tumbling Claws next.
When did he get +1 flyer attack?
He got that as soon as the Spire was done. I thought for sure he would cancel it because he didn't start building Mutas again.
Oh, by the 3rd base, it looks like Silky kind of out of position as... Okay, well... He was moving up the ramp for a second. It looked like TLO got on top of that hatchery, but not quite the case. False alarm, but the Nydus Worm does unload in the main.
That could be a problem. Silky not on top of that. I guess the Mutas had cleared out the roaches he left there or something along those lines, and oh no. Oh, no.
Oh boy, Silky trying to move up a ramp into Corrosive Bile. This is finally starting to find the damage that TLO was looking for. More reinforcements start coming in through the Nydus Worm, and Silky has to tap out. GG, our German Zerg player goes up 1-0.
Yeah, going up that ramp was already going to be bad news, but then he went like Ravagers, not quite first, but they were like on the front of the army basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have a lot of Ravagers versus a pure Roach army. The Corrosive Biles can be really effective. But man, TLO, what was cool about that is that he didn't get the damage done with the Nydus Worms, but he also wasn't losing a ton of units. He wasn't falling so drastically far behind in Roach supply, so he was quick to back off and say, look, okay, this Nydus Worm is a bust. This is not going to work. But then finally, it was in like the 5th attempt, the 6th attempt that he does the 1-2 punch with the Nydus Worm, that he actually does just catch Silky out of position, and it ends the game just like that.
Yeah, that was such an out of position. You know, the high ground ramp really going in favor of TLO. But it's like... It makes sense. TLO does these strats. That's what he's known for. It's what everyone brings up when he's creative. And then 9 times out of 10, he's actually not that different. But then he does show us a new build.
Yeah.
And the idea is cool, and it does work in that specific game. But you can see how it really wouldn't. Like, if Silky just left more roaches or went maybe more queens because the mutas were bothering him a little bit to cover the main base, and he only had to focus on his 3rd, I think he was doing that fine.
Yeah, I think that Silky was doing a great job up until that moment, and it was very much a build that is designed to try and force a mistake out of your opponent, and Silky the mistake did come from Silky. He was out of position. But you're absolutely right. Eventually, if you keep going for those plays, you are gradually bleeding off the resources for those Nydus Worms, any roaches that are lost, and Silky does gradually climb a little bit further ahead. So I guess that the Mutas are there to try and compensate a little bit for that, add a little bit of an X factor. But yeah, it's something that if TLO decides to go for something similar again, Silky definitely has the opportunity to just try and, I guess, handle it a little bit better.
I think he could. It's certainly a surprise that Silky wasn't prepared coming into this game into this game, not number 4, for the purpose
F-O-R, not F-O-U-R.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, okay then. We have an interesting game already starting. This is going to be a double early pool, guys. In the top right, down 1 for Psystorm Gaming. It is Silky.
And down in the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Zerg player from Team Liquid. He is TLO. If both players 12 pool, is it a 24 pool?
No! That is not how that works.
You multiply them? 144 pool?
You know, this was happening a lot on one of the maps from last map pool. Or maybe it was on before.
Steps of War?
Yes.
Dream pool?
One. Yes, thank you. That was definitely the last season's map pool. No. It was, and it's funnily enough, we had this whole, as we watched these pools get up, it was like Nate was talking about that game with Cyril, and I was like, what map is that? And this is the map that we couldn't figure out, remember the name of from last season.
So you just put us on the spot again.
I'm trying to remember to say that there was a ton.
To point out that we still don't know the name of that map. By the way, there is a difference in these 12 pools that we should talk about. The fact that TLO is adding on the Queen first and also getting up additional Lings to follow this up, whereas Silky is going for the hatchery.
Yeah. I was going to finish for saying that that map was full of 12 pool drone pools, but that's not what we're happening.
Yeah, yeah.
It's going to be that difference of the Queen versus the hatchery timing, but they both are still going for that follow-up, no gas. And now they both recognize that's the situation. It's TLO that stays behind with a few more Lings ready to pounce.
And the Queen also going to help out quite a bit as that range DPS that's also quite tanky can help block the ramp. Not that there's any Zergling speed coming up, but when the fastest thing on the map is still a slow Zergling, that still sort of makes them faster than everything else.
This one little Ling is going to get some decent scouting, I guess. So far, their Overlords are the only thing doing the scouting on reinforcements, but they're not reinforcing. So
yeah, both these players are going to transition this out into a more normal-looking game, and it's just about Silky trying to secure some space so that he can drone up with his Lings, and then TLO just defending with his Lings back at home.
Lost and found.
Yeah. Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about now. Look at that. We had a cute little quote there from Namshar that I missed.
There's something on the screen?
There was something, we were on the Namshar screen for a quote, which was really cool, but I didn't see it.
I'm sure it was something very wise. Very smart.
Okay, but we got more drones coming on up for both sides. No gas, or sorry, not that there's no gas. There is gas for TLO, but no gas going into Zergling speed just yet, especially for Silky. Silky actually doesn't have gas, as I look.
Yeah. The interesting differences past the weird opener ended up being a mirror, basically. Now the true differences of the speed versus, sorry, gas versus no gas, and then the gas of TLO does go into just a layer here. Silky probably going to be doing around about the same thing, double gases. Instead of the faster first gas, then a lair, then a roach horn, evolution chamber to wall off. There it is, exactly. Nailed it. It's just a question of, does anyone do the trick? Does TLO once again do nydus worms? Or does someone fake out and actually go for a spire? Or you could even go for you could still go for link speed and just bulk them up. There's things to do behind this roach wall. Or you could just play a long roach game out of it.
Absolutely. And we saw in the last game that Silky preferred going for the faster third base upon seeing that TLO was just going to be sitting back for a good bit of time, so he may opt to try and do something like that again. But there is, we see a lair going up for Silky as well before trying to grab a third base. And with the lair finished up here for TLO, it's going to be another nydus worm. He believes in this play.
All right, well, I mean, at the end of the day, it wasn't really like a huge trick that killed Silky. He was doing the thing he was doing for the last 5 minutes, and then suddenly it worked. So you look at it with that perspective, and you're like, well, that means I could macro with this. This means that I could find victories even when it doesn't seem like I am. So maybe Silky does, once again, hold the first 4 or 5 nydus worms, but then dies to the 6th one because it's just about that multitasking. There we go. Multitasking that Silky wasn't up to par with.
First nydus worm is going on up in the main base. The Queen does see it and knows that the Overlord is providing that vision. The rest of the Queen's trying to get into position. The roaches are not quite out yet, so this should be able to unload safely.
Yeah, I think TLO might just get the win off of this nydus worm. Not the shenanigans and the macro behind it.
No, Zombie, the numbers agree with you.
Yes, Silky does have his roaches finally pop out, but they were just late. The Queens are the ones that are focus fired, though. With the drone pull, actually, the drone pull might be unnecessary, and Silky realizes it, pulls his natural drones back, and could even pull his drones in the main. There we go. He only loses 3 drones so far for this.
Yeah, and cleans up a lot of roaches. Is going to be able to kill off that nydus worm as well. There's no more reinforcements stringing on in. So Silky sitting up in supply at the end of the attack.
I was really surprised that TLO dived on those Queens. When he saw the drones being pulled, I thought he would maybe maneuver around more, snipe things that were chasing him as opposed to running face first into it. But that was his decision, and Silky's drone pull, while it did lose him a lot of mining time, did make the trade effective for the armies directly. So you see an army supply lead for Silky.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And now we see a situation where both these players trying to get up their third hatcheries around the same-ish time. Silky with maybe a 20 or so second lead on that. While +1 weapons finishing up very much earlier for Silky, and that is going to be difficult for TLO to overcome, being down a full upgrade.
Yeah, TLO, not so much thinking about last game's Nydus Swarm and just using it in a macro sense. He did entirely push off that +1 missile and only started it when things were really truly over in the main base. So he is just significantly behind on that. An upgrade difference can mean life or death for sure, but there's still so many things about this matchup that can go one way or the other. Maybe we'll see some faster tunneling claws. Maybe we'll just see TLO take good concave, something along those lines. But Silky should be feeling confident after that hold.
Yeah. There's this weird time, I guess, that Silky is going to have the upgrade advantage. And I like that he's immediately started, of course, up +2 weapons, because that's going to prolong the advantage that he'll have. But there's this weird time where you do still have to be a bit concerned about another Nydus Storm attack from TLO. Pushing back Overlords is a great way to try and minimize the potential for that. But it's not as simple as just easily move across the map and boom, you're in a good spot. You're playing versus TLO. He's okay with the game sometimes going a bit weird. If it does turn into a base trade, maybe not exactly what TLO wants, but considering he is going to be playing a full set of upgrades behind and also down a bit of army supply, it's maybe not the worst thing for TLO to have happen to him.
Silky is not producing any more drones at 42. So even though +2 missile usually is something you see with a decent macro game like 55 drones, not this one. This is just Silky building units and going for the throat very, very soon. He has had that army lead. He does definitely have the upgrade lead, and he is going to use it. He's not going to give any opportunity for TLO to get some tricks in, fit in an upgrade, fit in a tech structure. How is TLO going to hold against about 20 armor supply difference?
Yep, not loading any units up into the Nydus Storm, so he is going to try and just defend over here. Ooh, delaying the +2 weapons upgrade there just a little bit. Not that it's... Actually, I think did he cancel it? He may have just canceled it. Yeah, I think he just wanted the extra resources to get up more roaches. It makes sense. He's up against an attack right now, and if he doesn't defend here, then he dies. He doesn't get a chance to finish +2 weapons.
TLO, I said 20 armor supply. It's actually 10, so that does... I mean, he's probably going to hold. He also has Ravagers included. It's the upgrade that should make a bit of a difference, but does it make up for Defender's advantage? I would say not with equal-ish armies.
Corrosive Biles whiffing on both sides. Finally, TLO landing a few of them. The Ravagers for Silky also getting pulverized. TLO really, really dominating that engagement. And now with the Nydus Storm going up in the main base, guess where Silky is not? At home. He's not at home right now.
Well, he is also awkwardly returning to his third base, so it's not like this would initiate a base race when he realizes this pops up. So he's at the third. He's trying to run back to the main, but this is very familiar, Fear Dragon.
I really like that Silky just has 3 roaches working away at that Nydus Worm, so he does prevent any additional reinforcements from immediately coming out, forces another Nydus Worm to start up, but he is fighting from the low ground up to the high ground, grabs her Corrosive Biles, making it hard to move up that ramp. And this is just a repeat situation in the last game. Like you said, Silky falling in supply, the Nydus Storm finishes up, the reinforcements finally come streaming on in, and GG gets called. TLO goes up 2-0 and advances on to the winner's match.
Nicely done. He got some cool tactics with the Nydus Swarm. Silky was probably a little weirded out by that, and the first game being more macro-oriented maybe left him a little less prepared for the second game that was a little more dedicated.
Yeah.
It was probably one of those situations where you had a bit of a hard read on the weirdness that is TLO. It was hard to read, rather, and well, in general, I think also TLO might just be the better player, straight up.
Yeah, and I really like the way that TLO actually showcased the usage of that Nydus Worm in that situation where he says, okay, in a similar sense to how if you have roach speed and your opponent doesn't have roach speed or something, and you find yourself in a good position, you can immediately go counterattack and immediately try and jump on your opponent's army or their bases and things. You're hard to catch. And Nydus Worm kind of acts as a similar thing. Like, oh, you took a bad fight. I can just bypass your army. I can go straight to your main base now and just immediately do the damage.
Yeah, it's one of those things though where it's TLO is that guy that comes up with these ideas that, like, theoretically you're like, well, it makes sense. You control the game, you can instantly counter, and then he faces like Lambo or someone. Yeah. So not use Cyril as an example all the time.
That's an unfair example.
And then that 200 mineral, 200 gas of all the Nydus Rooms and stuff suddenly means he loses, and you're like, well, maybe it's not a great idea. Yeah. But I'd love to see it become normal. That's what Blizzard, I think, intends for the Nydus Room to become, something you can do in the macro sense. So that would be fun. TLO would start the trend if it was anyone, but it also might just be NA group tactics.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think we are going to be moving into the next match very shortly. It's going to be the lower bracket match in just a little bit's time. That is going to be, I believe now, Silky facing off versus none other than the Terran player Seether. We had a bit of a tough time versus Coffee, but these two guys have definitely played against each other on that North American ladder in an NA varied NA tournaments. The following match is going to be the winners match of Coffee versus TLO, and following that up, we're going to go to the decider match. But ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be a heck of a fun day for Americas with so much diversity, so much awesomeness. We'll see you guys in our next Zerg versus Terran.